Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive RadiOh with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rouleau. Finally, someone willing and able to blow the top off hidden healthcare and hospital dangers. She's provocative, upbeat, balanced, fearless, fresh. Pat has over 20 years of experience as a professional public speaker and knows how to approach this important subject with enough humor and wit to keep you informed, entertained, and empowered. Each week you will say, "Oh," as Pat explores and exposes little-known hospital hazards, delves into the deep waters of dangerous healthcare practices, picks the brains of her good-looking and influential guests to help keep you and your family safe in today's fragmented healthcare system. The program is not intended to replace medical advice from a licensed professional, but rather to encourage you to become a well-informed participant in your health and well-being. And now, your host, Pat Rouleau.
Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive. I'm Pat Rouleau, and I'm thrilled to spend time with you again today. As usual, I've prepared a feast for your ears, lots to take in and think about. So grab a pen and paper. You may want to take some notes, then sit back in your best and most comfy listen to the radio seat and enjoy our time together. After my colorful healthcare hazard of the week, I have a super guest here to talk about the patient experience, and later the boys will arrive to play their favorite shocking news from around the world. So let's get to it, because right now it's time for the healthcare hazard of the week. Does anyone color anymore? Well, I'm heading off to the Barrel Institute's Patient Experience Conference in a few weeks to tape some live radio interviews from the attendees. And the following month, I'll be a speaker at the Cleveland Clinic's Patient Experience Summit. So my mind is full of the magic surrounding these events. Everyone is abuzz about how to make the patient experience a positive one. Now recall, fairly recently, Medicare offers incentives and penalties to those hospitals that receive either glowing patient satisfaction survey scores or poor ones. So, in some ways, there is a financial incentive for the interest in the patient experience. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but just wanting to give you some background. So what does this have to do with coloring? Well, last week, my mom told me about an article she read in the newspaper about a local hobby craft store that is closing after 67 years in business because no one comes in any longer to buy craft and hobby making items. Children and adults alike used to take the time to build model cars and rockets and train sets and painstakingly painted them, added decals. My brother spent much of his time as a kid building models, making each one unique and special. And so hearing about this made me think about how my friends and I used to color. Oh, how I loved crayons. Do any of you even have a box of crayons in your home? No, I'm not talking about the cheap dollar store waxy ones. I mean the wonderful old-timey Crayola crayons. Oh, I just loved the smell of a new box of Crayolas. One Christmas, I got a large, long box of 72 crayons with simply descriptive names: midnight blue, burnt orange, blue gray, lemon yellow, raw umber, forest green. How much time I spent just admiring the subtle difference between the colors and the decisions. Should I color the sky violet blue or midnight blue? Or, maybe pink? No, let's save the pink. Don't want to ruin the perfectly sharp point and the untorn paper. And what about coloring books? Where are they? Does anyone color anymore? My friends would come over and we'd sit and color all afternoon, sometimes with our own coloring books, but often we'd share the page, and sometimes we'd do so in mutual silence. But mostly we'd chatter away with conversations that spanned what's for dinner to imagine if you could fly. We got to know one another in a very powerful and connecting way that wasn't contrived, rushed, pre-planned, monitored. It just was. So to tie this all together, all of these jumbled thoughts converged as I interviewed a very interesting gentleman last week, and we discussed what is wrong with today's broken healthcare system. And it hit me. No one colors anymore. And that is certainly hazardous to our health. We as a society have rapidly evolved into instant gratification. Want to know the answer to something right this second? Google it or ask Siri. Heaven help us if we actually sat for a moment and tried to figure it out, or if we reached out to someone else for an explorative conversation. Our imaginations are squashed by social and technological expectations, by the mad rush of daily life and limited time. Sorry, patient, can't talk to you, can't look at you, and can't listen to you. I have 2 other patients booked at the same time and have to chronicle this appointment in the computer. And the more technology takes over our minds, the more we prefer to look at things the way they are supposed to be, rather than allowing our poor, stifled, yet creative minds to take a tour around the page and wander over imaginative possibilities. Sorry, patient, it's allergy season. Everyone in here today is complaining about the same thing. Take this and check back in 3 weeks. Well, this paralyzed ability to think in possible colors can block the creative flow that is so necessary for all aspects of life, especially medicine. Providers often need to find a way to solve a tricky diagnosis or discover a fresh approach in dealing with sick patients. Not being able to tap into that unique twist that's there, but covered, leads to poor outcomes for everyone. We, not just providers, but patients, have lost that childlike quality that frees us to stop and remember a time when we weren't burdened by responsibility and expectations, to reconnect to a sense of simplicity we have temporarily lost, to be uninhibited by past bias, professional greed, or political foolishness. Perhaps medicine today needs to reconnect with a box of crayons, to slow down, to smell, to touch, to quietly appreciate the silent but powerful colors that make up each individual patient, the other person who is coloring on the same page, to openly share in a trusting way to explore everyone's feelings and hopes and preferences, both provider and patient. Simply put, that is the patient experience. It's simple, it's basic, it's human, and we shouldn't have to measure it with patient satisfaction surveys, scores, incentives, penalties. But sadly, as the closing of our local hobby store indicates, we, and especially our youth, are not allowed this mental freedom anymore. Give a 7-year-old a box of crayons and you'll surely get screams. What? No iPad? Wow, for me, cutting edge was the crayon sharpener built into the box. Medical school training? No, I don't think they use crayons. Does anyone color anymore? Well, let me say this. I'm going to be a grandmother for the first time this summer, and guess what? This grand's buying crayons. After the show, be sure to visit the website speakupandstayalive.com for more life-saving information. Plus, that's where you can purchase the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. Bring the book to the hospital with you. It's the best way to stand out, and in a positive way. And remember, we donate 2 handmade pillowcases to either a troop member in Afghanistan or to a local veterans shelter for every book sold, with your name on it as the donor. So for a mere $20, you benefit, and so does some well-deserving warrior. Give a meaningful and useful gift that really says, I care. Give the gift of healthcare safety. Purchase the book, the patient safety logs, and throw in some of those icebreaker cards. It's a one-size-fits-all present that everybody needs. You can order online at speakupandstayalive.com, or you can request by email at speakupandstayalive.com, or call me 440-725-5462. And now, the smell of fresh spring air. Oh no, not in your house? Of course not, because think of all the pollutants found within our homes caused by mold, mildew, fireplaces and heaters, household cleaning products trapped in your home all winter. Well, I met a gal, Carolyn Reed, who can bring some clean, fresh air into your home with the only air purification system certified by NASA. She has a 3-day risk-free trial and will bring this portable unit to your home or office for you to try. Test it yourself and smell the difference. Call her for the details. Carolyn Reed, 440-665-7559. That's 440-665-7559. Now, if you or someone you know needs some in-home care or just some companionship for a few hours each week, Comfort Keepers are my go-to resource. They have the trained and ready, compassionate and friendly Comfort Keepers to help with all of your needs. Whether in your home, an assisted living home, nursing home, or hospital, sometimes all you need is a friend to stop by and brighten your day or tidy up your living space. Call Jack and Bonnie Warren at Comfort Keepers, 866-942-1960. That's 866-942-1960, or visit them at comfortkeepers.com. And Hospice of the Western Reserve is the only resource for quality hospice and palliative care. If you know someone who has less than 6 months of life, or so it seems, Hospice of the Western Reserve is a quiet and peaceful place to spend quality days. It really is worth it to check them out sooner rather than later. And you can call them at 800-707-8922. That's 800-707-8922, or visit them at hospiceofchoice.org. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, always on the lookout for a guest who has the experience and expertise to keep us safe during any healthcare or hospital encounter. And once again, today's guest is a perfect choice. He is Thomas H. Dahlborg, the Chief Financial Officer and Vice President of Strategy for the National Initiative for Children's Healthcare Quality, NICHQ for short, where he focuses on improving child health and well-being. Tom brings 23 years of leadership experience to NICHQ. His outstanding professional work includes bringing quality improvement to the healthcare arena, developing nationally recognized innovative access programs, addressing practitioner and patient needs and expectations, and developing and implementing focused and aligned strategies to improve health systems. And since we talk quite a bit about patient needs, expectations, and the patient experience, I felt it important to invite him to the show today. So welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Tom.
Thank you, Pat. Great to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, before we get started, this is the most important topic of today's conversation. I want to share with everyone that your lovely daughter, Samantha, is Miss Maine and will be qualifying for Miss USA, yeah?
That is absolutely correct, and the Miss USA will be on June 8th, so everyone be watching NBC at that time.
Absolutely. We will be cheering for her. You know, Tom, I visited her YouTube video. What a sweetheart. She was answering questions that folks had sent in to her. Beautiful girl, just so lovely and fresh, and I'm so proud for you.
Thank you, Pat. And if you haven't seen it, she has this amazing blog where she helps to young women really instill confidence in themselves. And so a lot of it has to do with bullying and so forth, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily have bullying, but it's these young women who may not have the self-esteem that they would like to have, and she works with them, takes pictures of them, and does Q&As with them, and helps them learn and grow. And the experience for my daughter Samantha has been wonderful, and for those children as well.
Well, speaking of blogs, I am a big fan of your blog postings, and every time I read an article of yours, I say, yes, that's what I think. So I'm excited to pick your like-minded brain today. But before we do, tell us about NICHQ, the National Initiative for Children's Healthcare Quality.
NICHQ was actually founded back in the late 90s. It was the dream of our CEO, Charlie Homer, who a physician, pediatrician out of Children's Hospital in Boston, to bring quality improvement to the pediatric sector. At that time, QI in healthcare was limited, and within the pediatric area, almost non-existent. Charlie worked to get funding to create NICHQ and has really birthed it to where it is today. We're, again, a quality improvement organization where we're focusing on how can we better position parents and families and, of course, children for optimal health care. And our focus areas include everything from exclusive breastfeeding and ensuring the connectivity between the mother and child, and all the data supports as far as the linkage to childhood obesity and the child's development, as well as the mother and child's development and connection. We do a lot of work in the sickle cell area. We do a lot of work with childhood obesity in general. Our autism work and patient-centered medical home work, it's really innovative. Again, in every project that we have, in every area that we focus on, it's really focusing on that patient and family and how do we best engage them. It's everything from the design of the approaches we'll use at the site of care where they can better be engaged, and the term they use nowadays is activated in their own health care. So it really is a special organization.
Excellent. I want to talk a little about the patient experience. And when looking at the healthcare system as it pertains to children and the child's experience, are there any or are there many differences compared to adult patient experiences, or do all systems serve all patients?
I don't believe that all systems serve all patients by any means, and patient engagement and patient experience, sometimes people will say, oh, it's the flavor of the month. Oh, we're going to talk about patient activation or patient experience. And it really can't be anymore. It really needs to be based on what are the needs of the patient. So when I think about patient experience, I have no idea what that patient's experience is going to be because I don't know what their preferences are. I don't know what their needs are, their wants are. I don't know what their socioeconomic status and these other aspects of health are to truly engage them in the way that will optimize their experience. And so what you referenced earlier that I write about typically is how can we create a model where the preferences of the patients are told and heard, where the patient and the practitioner or the care team, be it a physician, nurse practitioner, or other healthcare provider, truly has that connection with the patient, where the patient feels the trust to share their whole story. I worked for an organization where a lot of patients would come to us because they would say, oh, the healthcare system gave up on me. And a lot of these patients were defined as morbidly obese or were patients with weight issues. And they would come to us and they'd say, well, my doctor said you have to be on this diet and you have to do exercise. And if you're not going to do it, you're now a non-compliant patient. What we found, though, was when these patients came to us and we developed a relationship with these patients, and over time, the trust, they would tell us their whole story. And what we found more often than should be is that a lot of times this unhealthy relationship to food that they have was because of abuse issues in their past. So the typical healthcare model did not account for that specific patient, did not account for that specific story. It did not create systems, did not create pathways or avenues for that patient to get the healing or the care that they truly need. So I don't believe the systems right now in general do a good job at really identifying what the preferences are in optimizing the experiences of the patients. And I think we have a lot of work to do. Now, when you add to that young children and the patients and families, and that a lot of times these amazing caregivers, these amazing pediatricians or family nurse practitioners, they don't have the time because they're triple booked every 15 minutes to allow for the space and that safe container and the opportunity for that entire family story to be told. We're missing the boat. And in doing so, we're actually recommending things that aren't good for that child or aren't good for that family, and therefore we're wasting time and resource, and we're actually potentially putting these people in harm.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any suggestions? Because earlier you just mentioned you really don't have a definition for the patient experience because every patient has their own preferences. They come to the experience with their own expectations. How do you find out, short of just saying to the patient, what do you expect or what would make a good experience for you? How are you finding an answer to that?
Let me start by answering this way. A lot of times what I see organizations do, or they do focus groups, and they'll say, just like you said, so what do you want? My bias is whoever's controlling the focus group can basically dictate or manipulate it to get any response you want.
Right.
What we really need to do is listen. What we really need to do is allow these people to tell their stories. What we really need to do is set up a system that's agile enough to allow for those conversations to take place. Again, I work for a small nonprofit research institute, and basically our organization was the place where we did these studies, and we allowed for 60 to 90 minutes per physician or per practitioner with each patient. And we allowed for that time and continuity, and we allowed for them, the patient and families, to tell us what's really happening to them and how they're feeling and what's going on outside of that area. That allowed us to then redefine or define for that patient what their experience needs to be. And when I say that, I mean, so together with the patient and family, really create a care pathway that's going to best position them to achieve their goals.
Right.
So as an example, my son's an athlete, so his goal when he hurt his shoulder was to get back on the mound and pitch again. Well, at my age, when I hurt my shoulder, believe me, that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to be able to hug my child or to lift the groceries. Mm-hmm. And so the experience I have within the healthcare encounter if it's defined around or co-created with me, my pathway is co-created with me to achieve my goal, as my son's would be for him and others which would be different, there you go. Now you've felt heard. You've created a path to your goal. You have to take ownership in it, as does the healthcare system in achieving it. And then you can develop measurement systems and evaluation programs which allow for how is this working, what's working and what's not. Let's modify this. Let's change this. And really get to the point where, again, optimal communication, optimal relationship, a true trust, and a pathway that's going to lead the patient and family to where they want to go and where they should go.
Right. I agree. That's kind of what we're all about here, is talking about that patient experience and how to make it better, whether it's from the provider side or from the patient side, because patient has a stake in this and a responsibility as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You and I talked a few weeks ago about patient safety, a reduction in readmissions, technology, and checklists. And I guess the question is, if those quality of care issues are enough to truly make a difference when it comes to the whole patient experience, and based on what we just said, probably not, huh?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of times what's happening is quality initiatives, and they're being turned into, well, CMS has the HCAPs, and they're measuring patient satisfaction, and a lot of people believe that the key metrics within that, it's a great improvement over what used to be out there, which was very limited or not nil. But will that make a difference? Would that really help? And what I found, and without truly changing the model of care, financial incentives to physicians to have better patient satisfaction, and they consider that a quality metric in many cases, actually causes more harm than good.
Whoa.
Because what happens is, now I'm a physician's a great person and a high-quality person, and is being financially incentivized to have higher patient satisfaction. On the face of it, it sounds really great. And yet what happens is, I'm that physician, I don't have time to be with that patient to really find out what's really going on. So that patient says, I want an MRI for this, or I want this surgery, or I want whatever it may be. Well, if I'm truly being driven financially to make that patient happy, I might be driven to give them what they want, whether it's the right thing or not.
Right.
Because then, at the end of the day, the patient's, I got what I wanted, check. And the patient satisfaction's higher, and life is good. And I know there are different questions within HCAP and other patient satisfaction measures, but at the end of the day, the patient is answering those questions based on, did I get what I want, based on, again, our broken healthcare model. Now, change that. Change that to where that physician and patient actually has that trusting relationship, and now that same patient says, I really want this. But now they trust the doctor or nurse practitioner, and they have time to talk. And that nurse practitioner, let's say in this example, says, I don't think that's what's best for you. If we really look at these three things and goes down a pathway, and I think you might want to try this, or this, let's really talk it through, and let's co-create, and don't even have to use that term. Let's create a different pathway that's also going to get you to your goal that may be less dangerous or whatever it may be. They may agree to disagree, but because there's that relationship and trust, the satisfaction is still there, and the care is better because they're communicating, because there's that understanding, because they're taking the time. And so I think that's critically important when we think about quality, when we think about patient satisfaction and engagement and all these other measures, is let's make sure that that we're also looking at those unintended consequences. How dangerous does it get because we're incentivizing physicians or patients or whoever it may be, or employer groups financially to follow different pathways?
Ooh, that's a real interesting thought. I mean, the incentivization would work as long as we had that trust factor built into that.
I think it would be much better positioned to work, absolutely,
Yeah.
and I'd want to study that as well.
Interesting. Wow. All right. Well, you wrote in a recent blog post something that, for me, gets right to the matter. You said that more than a century ago, William Osler urged his students at Johns Hopkins and Oxford to, quote, listen to the patient. He is telling you the diagnosis. And I've always thought that, and I'd like to add, to look at the patient. I think there's a lot of diagnostic clues in a person's facial expressions and in their body language, but when you have a provider that's either preoccupied or in a hurry or typing notes into the computer, he or she can miss some very telling clues.
I actually lived that, and just very briefly. So back in 2001, I became ill, and I was told I'd never work again. And I became that patient that was carrying my medical record from doctor to doctor. And I was that patient that was getting the 5 minutes to 7 minutes. And I was that patient that didn't have a name anymore but had a diagnosis or a stand-in for a true diagnosis. And I was that patient that wanted that eye contact and wanted that connection, and yet the physician had very limited time and needed to fill in those boxes on that in that electronic medical record. And so I experienced that, and basically the system gave up on me. And quite frankly, at that point, I was giving up on the system because I felt no connection to the system. And it was incredibly challenging. So everything you just described is absolutely correct, that there is a barrier to true connection because of the broken system that we have. Again, these physicians and the ones I've experienced, incredibly well-meaning, but really in a broken system. If we can fix that system, we can get through those barriers and really allow for that physician or that nurse or whomever it may be to look at the patient. And I love, if you're familiar with Abraham Verghese and his TED Talk and so forth, and touch the patient and palpate. And I'm not clinical by any means, but really go back to the best of what physicians used to do and the best of what physicians were able to do, and marry that to this incredible technology, and then marry that to the amazing advances in healthcare and pharmaceutical care and so forth. But when you add that, you truly understand the patient from all the different lenses, from sight and touch and feel and hearing and so on and so forth. We can do some amazing things. We want to innovate healthcare, build a model that allows for that.
Absolutely. That's why I love you. You wrote something scary. Primary care physicians miss between 40,000 and 80,000 diagnostic opportunities per year, which can lead to considerable harm to patients. Yeah, so what can a patient do about that? I recently, last year, went to see a doctor, and when I left, I realized I had no idea what color his eyes were, but I know the top of his head. I knew exactly where the moles were and where the hair was and the bald spots. And so I thought, wow, talk about missing a diagnostic opportunity. He didn't look at me. I didn't know what he looked like. And so what can we do as a patient?
I'm going to answer it in a couple of different ways. There are a lot of patients that are so disadvantaged and have had such challenges in their life that we really need to create a model that's agile enough to allow for them to be best positioned in their own healing. I hear a lot of people talking about, well, consumer-driven healthcare, Regina Herzlinger, and brilliant book and brilliant woman, and it talks about patients as customers. It's different. Mm-hmm. This is life and death.
Yeah.
This is so much more. And again, there are so many studies that show how these disadvantaged patients don't have the same opportunities that maybe the rest of us do or that others do to really optimize that visit. So people who are less disadvantaged, absolutely, you need to be wise in selecting your physicians. You really need to understand that if that physician doesn't have time to spend with you, you need to find a different physician. If that physician or nurse practitioner or whomever doesn't allow you to ask questions or rushes you out, you need to find another practice. If you don't have those options, you need to go to the president of the hospital. In many cases now, primary care and other physicians are being, they're owned by the hospital systems themselves. You need to go up the chain. You need to take advantage of those avenues. If that doesn't help, then you need to go beyond that and go to your local politician and get them involved in your health care. Health care is so important, and as we know with the Affordable Care Act and so forth, it's so mainstream right now. Take advantage of those pieces of it. Mm-hmm. You also need to do your own homework, and that's incredibly challenging too because you can't always trust what's on the internet. So you really need, though, to find a practitioner like I did that truly connects with you, that you feel safe with, and that you can have those types of conversations with.
Well, now, you and I also discussed provider burnout and how the healthcare system needs to evolve to allow our providers to heal, because all this sounds great, but if we've got providers who are unwhole doctors or nurses, we really can't expect them to make us whole. So what are your thoughts about that?
Thank you for the question. It's a great question, and I have had a number of, because of where I've worked and my writings and so forth, a lot of physicians and nurses and so forth will seek me out and we'll have these amazing and powerful conversations. And I hear stories such as the nurse at a local hospital that says, I had 30 patients that I had to take care of, and I didn't have the time, I didn't have the ability to provide and be present with every one of them and give them what they needed and they deserved. And so this nurse, incredibly caring nurse, said she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't look these patients in the eye knowing that she wasn't positioned or wasn't able to give them the care and honor them and give them that care that they require and need and desire. So again, that's an example of we need to change the model. Same thing with physicians. I've talked to these brilliant and caring, especially primary care physicians, that come out of medical school and they would visit different practices, and they would become part of a salary practice where they're going to get their tuition paid for, their medical school tuition paid for. Brilliant, great financial decision for them and their family. But what they found is, again, they're being triple booked every 15 minutes. That they're no longer caring for people, but they're getting people in, getting to diagnosis as quickly as possible, and then turfing. That's not care. Right. And that's what resonates. That's what I kept hearing. And when I hear a physician say to me, I lost my soul for healing, it's because, and they would say this, it's because they weren't healing anymore. Mm-hmm. They were part of a broken system that wasn't necessarily doing great things, and in many cases was doing great harm. And so they're looking for other options. And you hear people talk about concierge practices and so forth. And I'm not necessarily a proponent for that, but I can see why physicians and nurse practitioners would go into that type of model. I think there's great positives to it, and I think there's real challenges because I'm concerned about access, which is a whole different conversation to have.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much more we want to talk about. And where can our listeners, if they want to find out more about you and what you do, if they want to read some of the goodies that I read, where can they go to do so?
So a lot of my blog posts are on hospitalimpact.org. So if you just go to www.hospitalimpact.org, you'll see my posts. And then if you just simply Google my name, Thomas Dahlborg, D as in David, AHLBORG, you'll see my LinkedIn profile. A lot of my blogs come up.
Well, thank you, Tom, for taking the time to share your thoughts with us today. And for sure, we will be watching Miss USA on June 8th. And everybody's going to root and cheer for Samantha, right?
Samantha Dahlborg from Maine.
Yay. Thank you so much for sharing your information with us today.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. And Pat, thanks for what you're doing out there. It's very, very important.
Well, I appreciate that as well. What happens if you become unable to speak for yourself and are in the middle of a healthcare crisis? Wouldn't it be comforting to know that someone you know and trust, a family member or trusted friend that you named, is on your side with complete instructions that mirror what you want to have happen to you? If you do not have a properly drafted living will or healthcare power of attorney, you are living dangerously. And if you do have these documents, when was the last time you reviewed them with someone? Well, my friends Pat Schraff and David King at Schraff & King are the ones to help you. Call them right after the show at 440-585-1600, 440-585-1600, or visit them online at schraffking.com. And speaking of taking care of business, guess what? April 15th is right around the corner. Have you prepared your taxes yet? And no, I don't mean you personally. Unless you are a seasoned accountant, you might be missing important deductions. And that's where Ebert Financial comes in. Jim Ebert will help you get the most out of this year's tax filings. Don't give money to the IRS. Maximize your refund. Call Jim Ebert today and get those taxes out of your hair. You'll find him at 440-285-2060. That's 440-285-2060, or visit ebertfinancial.com. So glad you found us. This is Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rulo, author of the life-saving book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, and it's found at the website speakupandstayalive.com. Or if you do not have internet access, you can always call me, 440-725-5462, 440-725-5462. Well, now it's time for the seemingly silly portion of the program. It's game time. And today, the guys selected a favorite.
Shocking news from around the world.
Here's how it goes. I will read a healthcare-related statement, and you must decide if it is true or false, or as we call it, a shock. Wow. Or a crock. Oh. And we have our two seasoned contestants. Remind everyone who you are and from whence you came.
I'm Eric. I'm a regionally famous radio producer from Northeast Ohio.
Yay.
I'm glad he's regionally famous.
Are you, Bob?
I'm Bob. And I'm just a local boy from East Tennessee, a former financial planner and a developer. But I'm here.
You are here. I'm so glad that we're all back in the same studio. Okay, we ready?
Go for it.
Okay, here is a Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 1. 10 million wisdom teeth are extracted in the United States every year. At least 2/3 of these extractions are unnecessary. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
Ooh, I try not to think about the dentist. That just kind of freaks me out. It's
so weird. That's why we love you.
You know, I'm not sure what to say. I'll just say shock just by default.
Default. Okay, what do you think, Bobby?
I think it's definitely a shock. I think that dentists do things they don't need to do.
All right, you guys are both right. Sadly, it is true. It is a shock. Wow. According to the article, the prophylactic extraction of third molars, a public health hazard, at least 2/3 of these extractions' associated costs and injuries are unnecessary, constituting a silent epidemic of dentist-induced injury that afflicts tens of thousands of people with lifelong discomfort and disability. Yeah? So think long and hard about what you're doing before allowing a doctor or a dentist to put you under and perform a highly invasive procedure. Understand the risk versus the reward. And understand that every time you allow a medical procedure to put you under the knife, you may never wake up.
That's true.
You need to do your own homework and rely on yourself, not your doctor, not your dentist, to research the full risks involved. The more you learn to say no, the longer you will likely stay alive.
That's so true.
See, Eric, now you don't have to go to the dentist.
Yep, now I'm going to continue repressing any thoughts I might have about the dentist.
Yay. And don't worry about those impacted wisdom teeth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be as wise as you are. Bob's shaking his head. Okay, the Speak Up. Speak Up and Stay Alive. Shocking news number 2. The fluoride chemicals added to many public water systems in North America directly contribute to both mental and behavioral disorders in children, such as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and autism. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say it's a shock, and there's something else you need to know about the fluoride solutions. We're just using Chinese fluoride as a waste for them. We're using their waste to put in our water.
Did you just peek at my notes?
No, but I'm just saying that.
Oh, okay. Well,
I read that someplace.
What do you think, Eric?
I think since that is what's on your notes, I'll say a shock.
I knew you were going to say that. That is true. It is a shock. Wow. According to a new study published in The Lancet by researchers from the Harvard School of Public Health, the fluoride, Bob, is from China. And basically, we are China's toxic dumping ground for heavy metals. You're right.
And that's the reason it's affecting our kids.
Yep. Fluoride is the only chemical added to treat people who consume the water rather than just treating the water itself. So fluoridating water supplies can thus fairly be described as a form of mass medication, which is why most European countries have rejected the practice.
I don't think they want to get rid of us since we're such a huge market for their products.
We're in such debt to them.
No, they already own Nevada, Eric.
Oh my gosh.
That's the land that since we can't pay our debt back, they're giving them the land.
Oh my gosh, we've gone from fluoride to...
Okay, go for it.
We're going somewhere else here, people.
Go to
right.
another question.
Let's do it. Speak Up and Stay Alive. Shocking news number 3. Eating coconut contributes to poor health. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
My first impulse is to say shock, just because coconut tastes kind of sweet, and anything that's sweet has to be bad for you, right?
I'm going to say it's a crock. I think coconut's good for you.
All right. You're right, Bobby. It is a crock, but you're right, Eric. I thought the same thing. It is a crock, at least according to the Coconut Research Center. Oh.
See, I knew there was a center for coconuts.
They say that eating coconut has several advantages. It improves functioning of the brain. Just one serving helps in keeping age-related diseases such as Alzheimer's at bay. Coconuts can aid in weight loss due to its dietary fat called medium-chain triglycerides, which speed up the metabolism.
I better go buy a bunch of that tonight.
Bobby, it can improve heart health and reduce cholesterol and LDL cholesterol levels. And just 1 cup of coconut meat has shown to contain 7 grams of fiber.
I'm going to buy coconut tonight.
Now, we're not talking about the bagged, shredded, and highly sugared coconut.
We're getting that raw coconut.
And we're not talking about the coconut found in Mounds bars either.
Well, now, I thought that was a good one to get.
So that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I saw Eric's eyes. He was thinking,
You know what would be good? A good chocolate coconut cake. Ooh.
macaroons.
Oh, chocolate macaroons.
No, we're talking about real coconuts. And don't worry about overeating, because have you ever tried to crack open a coconut?
It's hard.
Have you cracked open a coconut, Eric?
No, I haven't.
You should try it.
I'm not sure I want to. Harder to break into than Fort Knox.
Yes, they are. I did one recently with a screwdriver and a hammer. It was
Yes, you
an
did.
interesting exercise.
She broke the hammer.
Oh, you're going to love this one. The Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 4. Checking earwax is a good indicator of whether or not a person produces underarm odor. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say that's a bum fuzzler. I have no clue. I'm going to say shock just for the heck of it.
I'm going to say shock. Just some weird
Process.
logical reasoning there.
Okay, you guys are right. It is true. It's a shock. Wow. These findings were actually published in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology. I don't know who would be investigating this or why, but the research shows that more than 75% of people with a particular version of a gene actually don't produce underarm odor, but they use deodorant anyway. That's one thing. And the authors also highlight that people who carry this rare genetic variant also are more likely to have dry rather than sticky earwax.
Oh, boy.
We need to check our earwax.
I need.
Did we like that question?
No, go to the next one.
All right, the Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 5. College sports memorabilia and university sport jerseys, seat cushions, and keychains may be contaminated with toxic heavy metals that promote neurological damage. Is that a shock or is it a crock? Interesting question. What do you think, Eric?
I'm just going to guess shock just because I don't know. I don't know where these pieces of sports memorabilia are coming from, and I don't know if I want to find out.
You're going to find out.
Well, I would say it's a shock because if it's memorabilia and it's been used by athletes, and athletes do sweat a lot.
We're back to the sweat.
Back to the sweat. So I'm saying it's a shock.
It is. This is weird, and it is a shock. Wow. And this wasn't old memorabilia. This was new, stuff that you get, okay? College sports jerseys, keychains, seat cushions, and other memorabilia have been found to contain shockingly high levels of toxic heavy metals like lead, mercury, cadmium, and arsenic. The toxic products were sold by stores like Target, Walgreens, and Walmart, and they represented the University of Michigan, the University of Minnesota, Michigan State University, and some other universities. Not sure why, just those. But for example, a University of Michigan deluxe keyring was found to contain over 1,200 parts per million of mercury, which is a really potent neurotoxin. A Michigan State University seat cushion was found to contain over 200 parts per million of cadmium and 170 parts per million of lead. Now, cadmium causes kidney damage and lead damages cognitive function. The University of Michigan jersey contained 130 parts per million lead in its ink print.
Wow. Doesn't make sense.
Any thoughts?
Well, I noticed you did not mention Ohio State, so I know a bunch of people listening in Ohio right now are feeling a very smug sense of superiority.
Or a sigh of relief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's just one more way the public health is being compromised without our knowing it. So take those jerseys off, University of Michigan people.
Thank you.
All right, guys. And now to the Naked Mole Rat Minute. Yeah?
I'm excited.
Are you excited, Bob?
Go for it.
I got irritated this week. I just read an anti-naked mole rat article on the website. Anti, I said. CancerResearchUK.org. The title of the article was Headlines About Mole Rat-Derived Cancer Cure Are Premature. They say, mole rats are newsworthy. They look weird, they live in colonies like ants, and they don't seem to get cancer. But we think some of today's headlines about research on mole rats have gone too far and give a false impression of a non-existent breakthrough towards a cancer cure. And then a big bold letters, it says, overblown headlines. We love to see interesting research being discussed in the media, and lots of the lab work on blind mole rats and naked mole rats is genuinely intriguing. But we're concerned such overblown headlines could give patients false sense of hope of a wonder treatment that's just around the corner. Or equally damaging, such recurrent headlines could have the opposite effect of undermining the public's confidence in cancer research by creating the impression of breakthroughs that then don't quickly materialize into cures. Such stories create an impression that research isn't working. Now, how do we respond to those naked mole rat haters?
I don't think they're entirely wrong. I think they're right in that you shouldn't expect a cure from them right away, that you need to be patient. You shouldn't expect that tomorrow you'll wake up and there's going to be a naked mole rat wonder drug cures cancer, world-changing type of thing in the newspapers.
But I want to believe that about the naked mole rat.
Well, I'm just saying, like, we have to wait. If there is a cure being derived from the naked mole rat, we have to be patient.
All right, let's be patient.
Yeah.
Now, this Israeli study has only confirmed the unique abilities of the naked mole rat to resist cancer. There are no current implications for human cancer treatment. Nonetheless, there remains optimism that understanding the anti-cancer mechanism of mole rats may one day help inform further cancer treatments for humans. Should we just go with that?
Let's go with it.
Yeah.
All right, let's give credit to the naked mole rat. Let's say naked mole rat. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Naked
mole rat. All right.
Jerry's going to love you.
Well, this was a bizarre group of questions today, guys. We learned about unwise wisdom tooth pulling, toxic Chinese fluoride, the benefits of eating coconut, earwax, underarms, and deodorant, and toxic college memorabilia. Yeah?
Yep. Got all of them in there.
We did. Well, now I'm sure you know that the next question is coming. So, on what other patient safety radio show will you find this random roundup of ridiculous yet redeeming reports?
What other patient safety radio show is there?
There's not one.
There isn't.
That's good.
Well, Bob, I thank you so much for being here today.
You're quite welcome.
And Eric, thank you.
You're welcome.
Glad to have you here. All right, folks, don't move even an inch. There's so much more coming up on America's favorite patient safety radio show, Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Well, that's a wrap, guys.
That's a wrap.
Naked mole rat.
All right. Now to the health side of life. Especially today, it's so important to stay out of the hospital and out of our crazy healthcare system. And you can do that by taking care of your body through regular chiropractic visits with my friend, Dr. Tad Roediger. Dr. Roediger uses the gentle approach offered through his activator method. No cracking, no popping, twisting, or contorting. Chiropractic visits are not just for those with painful backs. A regular visit can help potentially heal many other health ailments. I suggest you at least give him a call to talk about your personal issues. He's at 440-285-0756. That's 440-285-0756. Or visit him online at roedigerchiropractic.com. And when you need to de-stress and pamper yourself a bit, or if you have any skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, acne, rosacea, you must visit my friend Lisa Stewart at Celia Spa in Brecksville. She has state-of-the-art equipment not found in other local spas and is trained to relieve your aches and pains through massage, facials, and high-quality and effective skincare products. Call Celia Spa at 440-526-0522. That's 440-526-0522. Or visit Solia Spa, SOLIA spa.com. You've heard Mary Sheehan on the show, everyone's favorite pharmacist, Prescriptions for Happiness. This gal has an innate way to get to the heart of a problem, and that's why she is the perfect person to call when you have any kind of relationship issue or even an issue with yourself. She will talk with you for 30 minutes, record the conversation, come up with a solution, and send you a copy of the conversation so you can use it in the future to help you get through whatever is bothering you. Call her. She is full of energy and quite intuitive. Mary Sheehan, 330-592-5793. That's 330-592-5793. Or visit prescriptionsforhappiness.com. Do you or someone you know need help to navigate a hospital stay or a confusing medical situation? Concerned about nursing home care or just need a neutral medical person to guide you in the right direction? Or are you completely confused about health insurance and all of the interesting options? Well, I have the solution. She is Hari Khalsa, an experienced patient advocate who can help. And she's just one phone call away at 1-800-980-HEAL. That's 1-800-980-HEAL, HEAL. Or visit her website, healthcarewhisperer.com. You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. I am Pat Rouleau, your hostess and author of the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, available at all of our live speaking events or at our website, speakupandstayalive.com. And I want to remind you, if you're looking for a speaker for your next event, I'm happy to share my expertise with your group. My presentations are always fun, fast-paced, and full of information you will not find anywhere. So call me. And let's talk about how we can make your next event a memorable and worthwhile experience. I'm at 440-725-5462, or you can always email speak@speakupandstayalive.com. Now we're short on time today, but before we go, I want to give a big thank you to our weekly radio sponsors and guest experts. So please visit speakupandstayalive.com, the website, to find out more about our sponsors and weekly guest experts, and please use them and their services, because thanks to them we are here, and that helps keep all of us safe. And be sure to come back next week. Lots more to share with you. So tell your friends, mark your calendars, and set your alarms for next week. Same time, same place, but not the same information. Start your week with an O. Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. And until next week, I hope you have a healthy and a happy week. I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem and should not be considered as medical advice. If you've missed part of today's show or just want to share the information with friends, you can listen to all of Pat's previous shows at speakupandstayalive.com. Want even more information? Purchase a copy of Pat's book at speakupandstayalive.com. Or you can call Pat at 440-725-5462. Until next week, remember, it's okay to ask others to wash their hands. You have to speak up and stay alive.